here back again with a review on the movie Deadpool. Went and saw it yesterday afternoon, and I thought it was good. And basically, my whole thing with the movie is that it had a very thin plot. Basically, he's diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, and the Mutant X program recruits him, cures his cancer, and turns him into Deadpool. And basically, the entire plot of the movie after that is him seeking revenge on those same people simply for making him ugly. And he turns out that there is no cure for his disfigured look, if you will. And he becomes okay with that. And the whole movie in and of itself, it has puns and jokes about itself as well as the other X-Men movies. There's several jokes in there about Hugh Jackman and some of the other X-Men, and basically, in terms of the overall plot, it's a very thin plot. The humor in it, I thought, was very good. There were several times when I was laughing. It was, to be honest, pretty funny. It certainly has its moments, and so I will give it that. But it seems like the characters were all very one-dimensional. Ryan Reynolds' character, even him, I would say even him was just 1.5 times dimensional, if that makes any sense. He is the plot, the storyline with him and his girlfriend, it seems like just a plot device just to further the story a little bit. The story of Colossus and the other one, forgot her name, forgive me. I'll have to look it up, her name later, but the two other X-Men who come in, they seem very one-dimensional in the story, just to add minutes to the movie, if you will. And it all seems very just a one-dimensional storyline of one-liners, if you will, mostly from Ryan Reynolds. And, like I said, many of them were pretty funny, but it was just a movie that, while funny, just seems very one-dimensional to me. And I think it could have been much better had they added more depth to the characters, had it, been more faithful to the comic book storyline, if you will. Like, Angel Dust, for example. Her character in the comic book, she does die, but she dies, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, she dies in the comic books. She doesn't die. Her powers eventually, she loses her powers. Where in the movie, she doesn't. Her character is completely different. In the comics, she's a teenager. She's younger, but in the movie, she's an adult, and her power. She's on the Mutant X team. Her character is completely different from what it is in the comic books. In terms of Ajax, in the movie, he's the one that dies, but his neck is broken in the comic books. But in the movie, he's shot in the head by Deadpool at the end. Spoiler alert. And so there's several things, and you expect that in Marvel movies or any superhero movie where characters are changed, and sometimes dramatically different. But in this one, it seems like many of the characters are just they're the characters in name only compared to the ones in the comic books. And And I'm not some comic book nerd or anything like that. I've never read the comic books, just from what little research that I have done on it. And it seems, you know, that if you're going to go see this movie, you're going to go see it probably partly because of how it stands up to the comic books and in the whole Marvel universe, but also mostly the only reason why I could conceive of seeing it is just because it's a funny movie. In terms of the action sequences, they're good. They're a bit too fast-paced. They're they're really quick and they're fast-moving to the point almost where you can't see what really is going on. Who's doing what when, and even the action sequences are wrapped around the humor of Ryan Reynolds, if you will, and his one-liners in the movie. So it even seems like the action sequences in the movie take a back seat, or at least the front passenger seat, to his humor and his one-liners. And it seems as if the whole movie is just about that. And going back to where Deadpool last appeared, I think it was back in 2010, his character, Deadpool, is completely different from the one in this movie. I get this whole different universes and all that, but it's completely different from what we saw in that movie. And I could only see that movie, succeeding. It has succeeded. It has made $250 million, give or take, so far. And I see some. Well, let me back up. Some of the characters, like Angel Dust's character at the end, it seems like she just disappears at the end. Her and Colossus get into a big fight at the end, and then she just disappears. Okay? And then, Deadpool and Ajax Francis, have one last encounter before Deadpool kills him. And it just doesn't seem like a satisfying ending to a movie. It isn't a satisfying ending to a movie. And it, comes across as just a movie that's just filled with the one-liners, basically. And, if you want to go see a funny movie, then fine, go see it. But don't go see it for being a good superhero movie. It's not X-Men, like Wolverine or something like that. It's not, it's not, the Avengers or anything like that. It's not on that same level, in my opinion. If you're gonna go see it simply because it's, a decently funny movie. And that's pretty much it. Ryan Reynolds, he even makes fun of himself a couple times. Basically the whole movie seems like it's making fun of itself because it knows that it's a movie that just exists, if you will. It's a movie that knows what it is, and it's in the whole realm of the X-Men period, but just the superhero movies. It knows what it is. I don't want to say it's one big joke, but it's a movie that exists just to make bank for Marvel, basically, and so it knows what it is, and so it makes fun of itself. Even in the post-credit scenes, it's a scene that is basically a Deadpool version of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. at the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he comes around the corner and says, hey, what are you guys still doing here, and all that. It knows what it is. The movie itself knows what it is, and I think that's, in a way, it's a brilliant thing. And it makes fun of that. There's some jokes in there about Hugh Jackman. I mean, even at the end of the movie, Ryan Reynolds' character, Deadpool, he has a mask of Hugh Jackman on his face. So, it makes fun of itself. And I think, in a way, that's a good thing, because it, like I said, it knows what it is. And he realizes, hey, let's just make fun of myself. Let's make fun of the franchise, if you will, and just have a good time, And basically, have some action scenes and, have fun with ourselves. And basically, it is what it is. It's, I don't know how much of the scenes Ron Reynolds did of his own stunts, particularly in the action sequences, but and in terms of the whole movie line, just going from beginning to end, it breaks itself up several times. It doesn't flow properly. I mean, in a way, I kind of get why they did it, and you'll know if you go see it. You'll know why. You'll get it, but it doesn't flow. Instead of just going from beginning to end, it jumps, from the future to the past to the present, and it jumps, frequently. Here we are in, future time at the beginning, and then it jumps back. Okay, well, let me tell you how we got to this point. Instead of just starting at the beginning and finishing at the end, like the traditional. When you go to any X-Men or any superhero movie, it starts at one point and then finishes at another point. It doesn't jump between the present and the past and the future, and it is somehow the past and all this, that, and the other. With this movie, it jumps a lot, and it can be confusing. And it can be confusing, and to me, I think it breaks itself up. It's a relatively short movie, it's less than 2 hours. It's 107 minutes, I think it was. So it's just over an hour and a half, and so it doesn't flow properly as a movie. And I think for a movie that's relatively short like that, I can see maybe having one or two breaks in it, to flashbacks, if you will, to the past, to, set up characters and all that. But it does it all the time, and it spends way too much time in the past and setting things up. And it's not really until you're into the second act that it really just gets going, if you will. And there's several things wrong with the movie. I know it was received well, but just in terms of the plot line, and it's a very shallow movie. It's full of plot holes and whatnot. I don't want to give too much away, but it's basically a fun movie to go have a few laughs, and that's pretty much it. It's not even in other superhero movies. The Avengers, whatever, they aren't your thinking man's movie by any means. Even them, they have all kinds of cliches and explosions and whatnot. But at least they go a little bit more in depth in terms of storyline, plot. They're at least closer to the character in the comic books. But in Deadpool, it's not that. It's very one-dimensional. It's, they change up several things, and the entire movie is breaking the fourth wall. And again, it's the movie realizing, I think, the movie realizing what it is, the people who made the movie realizing what it is, and, they just ran with it. Breaking the fourth wall can be a plot device, and I think I know they do that, and I think they overdid it, I think, in my opinion. I can see in a movie like this, where you're using humor as your main plot device, breaking the fourth wall can be a plot device in and of itself, but I think even with breaking the fourth wall, they overdid it. I can see how it works, but I think even in this movie, they used breaking the fourth wall as a plot device too much. And I think if they toned that down a little bit more, they could have worked better. And had they added maybe another 20 minutes to the movie and added some more character depth, it could have been better. And I think if they remained faithful to the comic books a bit more, it would have been a better movie. Overall, it's not bad. I don't want to give too much away, but overall, it's not bad. It's just a movie to go see, have some laughs. It's, and has some decent action sequences in it, but the whole relationship between Deadpool and his girlfriend, it seems forced, and she's a hooker basically in the movie. I'm not sure about his girlfriend in the comic books, but in the movie she's a stripper, a hooker basically, and they fall in love basically and start living together. And after around a year or so, he's diagnosed with cancer. And even that story just seems, it's a very shallow storyline, and there's not much depth to it. And it doesn't seem like it's just there just to add a little bit of extra backstory, and that's it. In terms of when he goes and transitions from being, Ryan Reynolds to being Deadpool, in that whole scene where in the Mutant X program where he's with Ajax, even that seems is very shallow, and they don't go too much in depth with that. And it's just there to establish Ajax as being the bad guy, basically. And, in the beginning credit scenes, they don't introduce the actors, starring Ryan Reynolds, starring Gina Caruso, or I think that's the last name. It's, God's Beautiful Idiot, and it's the British villain, and basically introducing each character as a stereotypical character that they are. In many of the movies, who's the bad guy? He's a British. The main villain's British, and same thing with this guy. Ajax is played by a British actor. So even from the very, very start, in the beginning credits, they introduced each character with a movie cliche. And so it plays upon that. The whole movie realizes that the whole thing is just a cliche. It's a cliche within a cliche within a cliche, if you will. And so it plays on that, like I said, and it knows what it is. And so, basically, if you're going to go see the movie, like I said, just go see it because it's a funny movie. If I were to rate it, I would say it's maybe 3 out of 5 stars, 6 out of 10. Shallow performances, one-dimensional, thin storyline, and relatively one-dimensional two-dimensional at best humor. It's, you know, it is what it is. It knows what it is. I think that's probably the best thing about the movie, is that it knows what it is. And yeah. So if you want to, have a funny movie, it's more or less an action comedy, if you will, in my opinion. And it's an action comedy that's in the suit of a action hero, if you will, basically, if that makes any sense. Or disguised as an action hero movie, superhero movie. Anyway, I know I'm rambling here. I don't want to I've given away a lot. Spoiler alert. Anyway, here I am rambling on and on, so I better stop here. Yeah, if you want to go see it, but don't go see it because it's, going to be accurate to the storyline. It's not. Anyway, I hope this gives you some insight. And if you see it, I want to know what your opinions are. If you agree with me, if you want to add more stuff, if you agree with me, disagree with me, I'd love to know your opinions down below in the descriptions. Anyway, looking forward to hearing from you guys.